you talking about?
No one.
All right. Good morning, Gator Nation. What is going on? It is the Gators Online Show, live edition. I am Keith Niebuhr of Gators Online, part of the On3 Network, and that is senior Gators reporter Zach Alberverdi. And as usual, Zach, we got a lot to go over. We're going to wrap up kind of our thoughts on the winter off-season period because spring football starts in a couple of weeks, and you met with a bunch of the Gator assistants earlier this week. Then we're going to talk about some positions of intrigue. And look, we're going to have a full spring practice preview next week. So we're just going to kind of touch on a few things today and get into the meat of all that next week. And then finally, the Gator boys stay hot, and we're going to keep talking about the Gators basketball team because they are on this incredible roll, sitting at 20-6 right now. And they got another game this week, another road game. You never know what you're going to get when you're on the road, although maybe you do this one. We'll see. Yeah. Again, a lot to discuss, Zach. Just first off, everything good in your life? Anything
we're pulling triple duty now with baseball in full swing.
Yep. And before we get going, Zach brought to my attention that a good friend of both of ours has lost his life, passed away. Joey Knight of the Tampa Bay Times, formerly the St. Petersburg Times. Zach, you have he had a long battle with cancer. Not an old guy, not much older than us. A fantastic guy, a great storyteller, a terrific writer. Lived in Zephyr Hills. Zach, just want to share some thoughts?
Yeah, it was first of all got to know him through his time around the beat, and then very unfortunate to see his health decline. And the guy still showed up to work, man, and he was a grinder, and like you said, a great storyteller. And it's sad to see this day come. We knew it was coming, but it's never easy to lose somebody, especially a guy as great as him. And it's just kind of a sad day for SEC sports media right now because of the Wes Rucker news as well. So our thoughts are with him and his family as well as Joey's too. Do not take life for granted.
Yeah, I worked with Joey for several years at what was then the St. Petersburg Times. We actually sat next to each other, cubicles right next to each other in the Tampa office, and he would drive in every day from Zephyr Hills. And just a funny guy. We sat next to two other guys, Brian Lamon, who covered FSU, and Ernest Hooper, who now works for United Way. And it was just a good group of four people, and we laughed a lot and told a lot of great stories. And Joey and I, as recently as last fall, we're still laughing about some of the things that would happen in that office. So I'm going to miss him greatly. Just a fantastic guy. I wish everybody could have gotten to know him. The people that he covered knew that he put everything he had into that job. And so anyway, my thoughts are with Joey's family right now. All right, Zach, on to some lighter stuff, obviously here. The offseason, the winter offseason's almost over. There's other off seasons, but this is the winter offseason. You had signing day, the portal period, a new coach, a new coaching staff, new staffers, a new GM. And you got to meet with most of these people now. This week, I think the assistants that they brought in for you to interview: Brandon Harris, secondary coach; Chris Foster, running backs coach; Greg Gasparotto, who coaches the linebackers; and Evan McKissick, the new tight ends coach. Just early impressions of those guys. Probably your first meeting with most of them.
Yeah, it was. And, obviously, a lot of expertise there with that group. Enjoyed meeting those guys, enjoyed hearing from them. I think that, you look at each one of those positions, I think that there's some intrigue at those spots. At running back, obviously what you're getting with Jaden Baugh, but there's some competition to be had for those roles behind him. Obviously, what you got with some of the linebackers, but how does their new scheme, how does that kind of fit in? Are we going to see, Aaron Childs, Miles Graham, and Jaden Robinson on the field together a lot now? So there's some intrigue with that. Some young guys that are probably going to get in the mix a little bit more now. And then obviously tight end, that's probably one of the biggest question marks, Keith, just in terms of, they lost both of their starters, almost lost Amir Jackson, and then Evan and the staff were able to bring him back into the fold, which was a huge get. But then they also got a lot of new pieces in the portal that we got to – I think everybody's just in wait-and-see mode to see who's kind of going to emerge from that group. And then last but certainly not least, Brandon Harris at cornerback, which I wrote about at Gators Online this week, a very important addition to the staff. He was a very important addition in terms of the retention at that position. And most importantly, he now gets your foot in the door in South Florida, and Keith, knows how important that is. But it was obviously great to hear from those guys. We've now heard from every single assistant coach. So shout out to the Florida communications staff and Scott Burns and Matt and Alex, everybody, for bringing those guys for us to talk to. And we're going to get them again in the spring. We're going to get the coordinators in the fall as well. Like they're opening up the media.
Well, for you, I covered UF years ago, then left and then came back. And all I heard about while I was gone, the firm. For the people that don't know, that was sort of always kind of the nickname among some, not us, of course, among some in the media. Remember the movie, The Firm, the book? They had a stranglehold on the coverage. But I mean, I got to tell you, and I'm not just saying this, I've told the people that work over there, it's been a pleasant surprise since I got back, Zach. They're professionals over there. They are. And they're trying to help us. And who cares? I mean, I know you guys don't care if they're helping us, but we're a conduit to you. I mean, we're getting their message. We're telling their stories to you. So in that essence, even if you don't like reporters, that's a good thing. That's what we're there for. And they've been allowing people like Zach to tell these wonderful stories and interesting stories. And it's been great for our readers. Zach, Brendan Harris coached at UCF. Chris Foster comes from Duke. Greg Gasparotto, he was one of the Tulane guys, correct?
Correct.
And Evan McKissick from Tulane. So some of these guys have only coached in G5 at G5 schools. And it's interesting when they do their first interviews with the media at the bigger schools, some guys are either telling you everything because they haven't been told not to say anything yet because they're new to the big game. And then you've got guys that are real guarded because they don't know what to expect. And maybe it's their first time really being interviewed by a pack of wolves, basically, Zach. And how did they handle it? I'm curious. The new guys, McKissick, Gasparotto, Brandon Harris, how do you think they handled their first sessions in front of the media?
Yeah, I mean, they did well. I mean, the good thing is most of these guys have been exposed to, big time college football, either as graduate assistants. Gasparotto was at Louisville. Obviously, Brandon Harris played at Miami. So
yeah.
And he's been in the state. But like, to your point though, Keith, like these guys, none of them seem like they're out of their league. Or this stage is too big for them. They seem very confident and comfortable in their expertise, what they're doing obviously here with John Summerall and kind of the plan that they have in place, but also what they've been able to accomplish as coaches and how that's going to translate to this level and to the SEC. And again, a lot of them have been, assistant coaches or exposed enough that this is not going to be new to them in any sense, I don't think.
The guys that you talk to, you basically now met, I want to say almost every single assistant, right?
We've met every assistant. Yep.
Has that ever happened before? I mean, you've covered Florida for a long time. Is that
not
common?
this? No, not this early. No,
okay.
Not this early. Not this early. Usually we'll get him in spring ball, but not this early.
Brandon Harris, you and I were talking about him off camera, and you wanted to make sure we really got into him. If they don't hire him, Zach, did they maybe lose a couple of the guys that they ended up retaining? What can you tell us about that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, does Ben Hanks leave the Gator legacy? Probably not. I mean, he had options. He had schools after him. He was a former 5-star recruit. But when I asked Brendan Harris, was he confident that he could keep Ben Hanks III at UF, he said, "My mom is Ben's godmom." I'll just leave it at that. There's, when you get coaches or players for that matter from Miami, and in South Florida in general, like that community, that football community, like there's just so many ties. There's so much, everything's so intertwined. And to be able to tap into that with one of their own and have a guy in Brandon Harris that, grew up with, Ben Hanks Jr. as his mentor and had Ben Hanks's the third's older brother was his best friend or is his best friend, who he played with at Miami. And, the ties that he had to Javari Flowers, and he's been knowing this kid since he was in middle school. Both of these guys came up through his 7-on-7 system when he was on the 7-on-7 circuit. Like, these are just like little small details and things that, you know, people don't know about, but like it makes all the difference in the world when you're trying to get your foot in the door with a player or a parent or a school or an agent. And obviously that's just people that are from the area and have ties, right, Keith? Like,
yeah.
Brandon Harris, though, is different. His family is royalty in Miami. So not only do you got a guy that has those ties and is from the area and played there and played at Miami, but like it's a different level with the Harris name. I mean, it's like that name rings bells. That name rings bells like the Brown name in Gainesville, Florida. I mean, it's just and theirs is even deeper because of the level of success of Ice Harris and all the guys, all of his sons that he's now put in this sport. So, yeah, to your question, Keith, like, I think Ben Hanks probably is going to stay no matter what, or would have liked to. I don't think he was looking to leave, but once he found out Brandon Harris was his coach, he wasn't going anywhere. And I think Javari Flowers, I know from hearing from multiple sources that there was a lot of schools coming and knocking on his door. And I think once he found out who that hire was, and it's not just Brandon, by the way, and he was the first to say that. He said the other coaches, John, people in the front office also help these guys and keep them in the fold when Florida didn't have a cornerbacks coach. But again, that was the final thing that they needed to figure out. And once it was him, I think that the Gators were cooking and puts their cornerback spot in a good position.
You know, Ben Hanks, he actually played in that one goes the Mississippi State game last year. He played more reps in that game than like all the other games.
Well, that Florida State too. He had the pick in the regular season finale.
I didn't think he was bad. I didn't think he was bad at all for a young guy.
No, he graded out as one of Florida's top 10 players on defense.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, obviously the father, Coach Harris, longtime coach at Booker T. Washington in Miami. I think he's somewhere else now. Zach, you've covered a lot of high school games in your years, and sometimes you look back and you get to tell your friends, I was at this game when this guy played. I was at a game, I hope I'm not mixing my games, but at Old Traz Powell Stadium down in Miami, it was Tampa Armwood, Sefner Armwood versus Miami Booker T. Washington, who Brandon Harris played for, and his father was the coach. One of the assistants, I believe, was Ben Hanks' father, the former Gator linebacker. And on the other team, Armwood had a bunch of studs, including future Gator offensive tackle Matt Patchen. And Zach, the best part about that game, I don't want to bore everybody, it's probably too late for that, but at the end of the game, Armwood scored late, right, to take the lead. And they had beaten Booker T. Washington on a kind of I don't want to say a fluky play, but a crazy ending the year before. So it's another year where Booker T feels like they've got him and it's deep in the playoffs. I think the semifinals. Armwood goes down, scores late to take the lead, and it's effectively over. And the Booker T. Washington players, I don't mean to laugh. It was devastating to them, but they were so distraught over that last touchdown. Only like 6 guys went out for the extra point. So Armwood just walked in for a two-point conversion just to rub it in a little bit. But, boy, they had some great battles. And Brandon Harris was a dude, All-American cornerback in high school, All-American cornerback at the University of Miami. Like you said, Zach,
NFL.
South Florida cred down there. NFL. I mean, it's and we're seeing, and Zach, this shows more about you than me, but we're seeing that Florida is making some serious inroads down there. A couple years ago, they signed like 5 kids from Miami to Palm Beach, which was a lot. Ben Hanks was one of them. Ty Jackson, the linebacker, was one. There were some other guys.
Javari Flowers,
Nashawn Montgomery, and then the offensive lineman. But that was rare. That was rare. That was all the other years, the 3 other recruiting cycles for Napier's staff, Billy Napier's staff. They didn't have that many combined. But Florida's in it with a lot of guys down there from, I'd say, Port St. Lucie, which says some people still consider South Florida, to Miami, a kid at Coral Gables, kids in Miami, kids in Fort Lauderdale. So they're making some serious pushes. Are they going to get a bunch of them? We don't know. Blake Alderman and I, we're going to have a wrap-up next week on all the camp season stuff from a recruiting standpoint. But Florida is down there. And you mentioned Brandon Harris's ties, having played there. They've got a second coach, Marcus Davis, the receivers coach, who played at Delray Beach American Heritage, which is the other American Heritage program down there. And so, yeah, Zach, you're right. I mean, getting Brandon Harris could pay off in many, like you said, it probably already has paid off. And I think they're going to pay, it's going to pay more dividends down the road.
Well, and the other thing that it does, Keith, is
Yeah.
we start to look at this team as like that. It just, in my eyes, totally eliminates, I guess, concerns at the very least. And then certainly, I mean, there might be some question marks there, but just in terms of figuring out what it looks like. But like, if you lose some of those guys, or you lose a Cormani McClain, now you're having to go in the portal. And do y'all know how highly rated Cormani McClain was, and Ben Hanks was, and Javari Flowers was a top 100 recruit and reclassified. His On3 ranked him like 83rd nationally as a reclassified cornerback. So Florida's not going out in the portal and finding 3 cornerbacks, or any cornerbacks for that matter, as highly rated and skilled and has the potential that a McClain, Hanks, and a Flowers do. So hanging on to those guys, along with Dijon Johnson, they got Onus back as well. Like, that cornerback room is now, in my estimation, one of the rooms that you're not worried about. You're not worried about, I think, the running back room. I don't think they're worried about the wide receiver room. And I think obviously at linebacker, they're in great shape. At cornerback, I think now they're solid because of all those retention. And then at the edge spot, or at the jack, should we say, what you got in Jaden Woods. So there's some depth that need to be developed. There's definitely other positions that have question marks and are going to be big battles, and we'll talk about here in a second. But to be able to shore up a cornerback spot where you were losing Devin Moore, who was your highest rated player on defense, and be able to get those 2 upperclassmen back in Johnson and McClain, as well as these 2 promising, young, talented corners, both from Miami, and Hanks and Flowers, that's a good place to be.
Chris Foster, the running backs coach, I mean, he's walking into a pretty good situation, would you say?
I would say.
Well, just what did he have to say about the running backs, and just, what's his excitement level getting to coach Jaden Ball, who's coming off that, 1,170-yard season?
Yeah, it was, I wrote about that at Gators Online this week, about how they envision him not only improving, but taking his game to the next level. That was something that they kind of sold him on when they went and had that meeting with him in Atlanta, which we first reported about. And then obviously, all their efforts to eventually get him to re-sign. It was about what they could do for him. Obviously as the person but also as the player. And I think from a relationship standpoint, Foster went into that initial meeting on Christmas Eve, 24 hours after he had officially accepted the job. Like, he went in there to show Ball who he was as a person, and the type of guy that he was, what type of relationship they would have, how he was going to pour into him, how he was going to serve him as his position coach, and not so much about the football. It sounds like they left all that to Buster. Buster was the one that really kind of laid out the X's and O's and how he planned to use Jaden, and he had clips and all these things prepared to show him of his own film, but also of former running backs that he coached and NFL running backs that he thinks that he's similar to. And I was not surprised by one of them, Saquon Barkley, because they have basically the same build and height and weight and measurables. But I was a little, okay. The other guy that he compared him to and showed him clips of was Christian McCaffrey, the NFL's comeback player of the year. He was the NFL offensive player of the year 2 years ago before his injury. Obviously the best pass catching running back in the NFL. And Buster Faulkner thinks that Jaden has some of those qualities in his game, some of that skill set in his game. And Foster agrees with Faulkner on that. And they want him to be more of a pass catching threat. And they think that that's something that they can unlock in his game. They want to see his football IQ improve, and some other things that they want to focus on. But I was very fascinated to hear about the role, Keith, that they envision him, having in their offense, and how they want him to kind of set himself up to have a long NFL career. Because as Faulkner said, and it was kind of interesting to hear him say this, but he said that he he's got to take his game to the next level if he wants to play at the next level. He can't just be a guy that's, running the ball. He says if he wants to play for a long time, he's going to be able to have to do those things in the passing game. It's not just about carrying the ball. He's got to be able to run routes. He's got to have great hands. He's got to be a dual threat in that sense. And that's something we're going to see more from him this year, it sounds like. Keith.
That's interesting. A couple of things. It sure seems everything we've heard that Buster Faulkner is a different kind of dude. Like, he seems to be real. I don't know how you even say this, Zach. He's on point.
He's confident too, man.
Yeah.
He is. I was like, yeah. So what did you say to him? That like, what was easy to sell? It's just like confident, man.
Well, when I was talking to Jaden Ball's dad earlier in the year or late last year when they were trying to figure out what he was going to do, and he said that he was a big fan of Buster Faulkner.
Yeah. Well, he recruited him in high school.
Yeah, and I know you've heard the same thing I've heard, that so far Chris Foster's made a pretty strong impression on the running backs, and the word is they all seem to like him. I mean, it's early, they haven't gone into battle with him yet, but they like him. Hey, first impressions are important, man. What do they say when you start a new job? Work your hardest the first couple months, then you can kind of ease off the gas pedal a little bit. But whatever your people's first impression of you, that's what sticks, and they like this guy. And I think that's interesting. Yeah, you're right, Zach. That comparison to
like raised my eyebrows. I was like, whoa.
What's his name again?
Christian
McCaffrey. Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, look, he's a real talent. There's no doubt about it. And he wants to be mentioned up there among the greats in Florida history. And he's got a real chance. I mean, if he has another season like last year, he's going to end up with over 3,000 yards. There's only been 5 Gators to ever do that rushing. And then you throw in the fact, he could add some catches. And Zach, he had that, at the time was a big catch in the LSU game, that long touchdown that was called back. He can do a lot of things. He actually sort of reminds me way before your time, Zach, of John L. Williams, who was a fullback at Florida, but he was roughly Jaden Ball's size. And he was so agile when he got to the NFL. He had like 5,000 rushing yards and 5,000 receiving yards. And he could just do all of it. And to me, that's Jaden Ball. I just love, what's not to love about Jaden Ball?
I know, man.
All right.
And that was one thing that Chris said, is that he is an incredible human. And I said, well, why is he incredible? And he was just like, man, the way that he carries himself and shows up to work like he's a pro already. He's gonna be a pro. I think that he's kind of taken on more of a leadership role with that room. You don't have Jacoby Jackson there anymore. You don't have anybody there that's older than him. And they need those other guys to step up. I mean, you asked me about the running back room, Keith, like, Evan Pryor, London Montgomery, Duke Clark, Byron Lewis, like it's a competitive room. They need some of those guys to emerge to be able, they can't just be the Jaden Ball show.
Yeah,
and,
good point.
They need those guys to also come in and be able to provide, I think, a change of pace, a different look. I think they all do that. Probably Lewis is the one that is most similar to Jaden in terms of his skill set, but it sounds like Pryor and Montgomery are going to be a little bit more lightning as opposed to the thunder. And we know that Duke Clark is he's got some explosiveness as well.
Interesting. I think I could be wrong here, but I think digging into the bag of history, the last time Florida hired a running backs coach from Duke, God, I hope I'm not missing anybody. Might have been Carl Franks, who came in with Steve Spurrier, and coached. What's that?
Go ahead.
And he coached Eric Rett, so I think that worked out pretty well.
Well, you know what happened the last time Florida hired a former coach that was a play caller at Georgia Tech, right?
Well, that would have been SOS as well, right?
Yeah, would have been.
So many connections. It's funny there, the Duke connection. Spurrier brought all those guys from Duke, and now you've got this. And by the way, Zach, Duke just won the ACC, so it's like, oh, they just hired a running backs coach from Duke. Big deal. Well, they won the ACC, the conference that put a team in the national championship game. They won the ACC.
And his freshman running back was a stud, thanks to him.
Yeah, well, maybe he'll end up at Florida someday.
Who knows?
I mean, I don't know. You ready to move on to the next?
Yeah.
All right, positions of intrigue. Okay, Zach. So again, we're going to do a big spring preview next week. But Zach and I thought we'd talk about a couple positions of intrigue. So Zach, did I lose you there?
You did, but I'm back now.
Oh, all right. So positions of intrigue. We'll just go over a couple of them right now. Again, big show next week. Talk about all this. Look, we know what number one is. It's got to be quarterback. But what are some of your big headlines, big positions of need going into the spring? What do you think? Give us some thoughts here.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, I don't think there's there's position battles everywhere, right? But like we know what the Gators got for the most part at least at the top. At wide receiver, at running back, at linebacker, at cornerback. But there's a lot of other positions where either the starter's spot is going to be up for grab, or there's going to be a lot of competition for the number 2 and the number 3 roles in those rotations. Certainly the one that jumps out is quarterback, but to me, probably the most important one, and it might even be 1B, is offensive line.
Yeah,
I mean, you got to replace Jake Slaughter, and you got to replace your starting left tackle and Austin Barber. I mean, literally the two most important positions on the offensive line, most valued, should we say. So, the position battles at center, who emerges at left tackle, does Caden Jones maintain his starting spot at right tackle? There's going to be competition at guard as well because Damian George is gone. So that whole offensive line room is, right there with the intrigue in terms of the quarterback room. On defense, I mean, I guess you got to go defensive line. To me, there's no like they know who they've got to work with. I think that they probably know who's going to start, but just what it looks like, exactly what those guys' skill sets are and how they fit into this scheme, or more importantly, how this scheme fits into them. Those are some things that I think that they've got to figure out, and what the rotation is going to look like, what packages they're going to build around these guys, because they've got some defensive linemen that've got some versatility and can move around, and they've got athleticism, and they don't have any guy in there that's 350 pounds and is just a straight nose, so they can move some guys around. So that's going to be, again, I think they know who their starters are going to be, but figuring out how those guys fit is going to be one of the biggest and most intriguing aspects on defense. And then last but not least, just in the secondary outside of corner, right? Like, who steps up and emerges at star, who is the other starting safety now that Jordan Castell's out. We all assume it's going to be Cam Dooley, but just also how that unit in secondary comes together because of those new pieces. That's going to be very big in the spring.
Yeah, good point. In the secondary, you've got some good, talented new pieces, but chemistry, look, in any position, real important, and probably as important, like offensive line, they're 5 together. That's why they hold hands, right? Defensive line, they're kind of all doing their own thing.
Remember, 5 equals 1, Keith.
That's right. Oh, God. The defensive linemen, they're together, but they're all doing their own thing. Everybody's got to know what everybody's doing. Don't get me wrong, but especially in the secondary. Zach, on the defensive line, one guy, I think the freshmen are going to have to, I think they're going to have to step in and play. I think the numbers dictate that. One guy I'm keeping a close eye on is going to be Kendall Gervil. He could play nose. He's either a nose or the 3 technique, the guy right next to him, maybe the 4-eye, which would be a little bit outside of that. I mean, he can do a bunch of different things, but he's coming off like some serious knee injury stuff in high school. I don't know his injuries. I don't know his health status right now, but you hope by August he's ready to go, because I think, we've seen the last few years Florida play young defensive linemen, and actually they stepped up. Mekhi Barrow really stepped up 2 years ago, and then last year Jeremiah McLeod, Joseph Mbachi really stepped up. I think we're going to need to see more of that. On the offensive line, Zach, you're bringing in 4 guys from the transfer portal that all have starting experience. Now, limited starting experience, but starting experience nonetheless. I mean, so if you were on that Florida offensive line before these guys came in and you're thinking you're just going to get handed something because you're coming back, that ain't happening. And, Egan Boyer from Penn State was the projected starting left tackle. in 2026 for the Nittany Lions. Harrison
Yep.
Moore started 9 games for Georgia Tech last season. So, he knows the offense. He's got some kind of chemistry with Aaron Philo, who's battling for the starting quarterback job. You've got the tackle / guard from Stanford, who they think the world of. And then you've got TJ Shanahan, who started a few games for Penn State last year and a few games prior to that at Texas A&M. So these guys are coming in to win jobs, man. They didn't come – when you're a transfer – at a big school, you ain't going to another big school to sit on the bench. So there's going to be some real competition. So whereas, and you and I have talked about this, whereas, we don't know that they're going to be better at center. That'll be hard because Jake Slaughter was an All-American. We don't know that they're going to be necessarily better at left tackle. For all the grief people gave Austin Barber, myself included, he was 3rd team All-SEC last year. But I think the floor of the group is going to be raised. And so I like look, there's going to be real competition. They probably have no idea yet, if I had to guess, who the starting 5 is going to be. But maybe, we always heard, we've got 8 the last few years. We got 8 guys. We're confident. But it didn't feel like it. Because then when the 6th and 7th and 8th guys went out there, you're like, Jesus, what? You know what I mean?
And they would play him too, right? They were rotating.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, our message board is that proof there, the comments. But there's going to be some real competition. We don't know Fletcher Westphal coming off multiple injuries. Is he going to be ready to go here physically, all that stuff? So there's a lot of question marks. And then obviously quarterback is going to be what everybody's watching. But, I can't imagine. They're not going to name a starting quarterback in the spring. But we are going to get, Zach, you're going to get a great taste, from obviously hopefully some open practices, but also from talking to your sources that, who's doing what. And I think there's some confidence in both those guys based on the conversations I've had with you. I feel like they think they've got a couple of guys they can win games with at quarterback. But yeah, you're right. I think all the other positions are it's sort of like at running back. Well, who's your number 2? And maybe it's a situational thing. Maybe the number 2 is different for a different opponent, but
sure,
the other positions you feel good about. But those 3, and if I was to say, Zach, what are the 3 most important spots on the field? You'd probably say QB, O-line, D-line. So the intrigue isn't just who's going to start. It's, hey, these are pretty important freaking positions here,
Yeah. In the trenches and the most important spot in all sports. Hey, real quick, shout out to our viewers, man. Look at this.
Oh, yeah. Let's get him in
our
there.
Guy from Western Colorado. Shout out to Paul and our man from Plano, Texas. The concrete jungle, he says.
Plano, Texas, right outside of Dallas. Beautiful area. Western Colorado, Zach. You ever been out to Colorado?
I have not.
Unbelievable.
I need to go.
He may be playing coy with this here, but I think Aspen and Durango and cities like that, or Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's Western Colorado. Beautiful country. And no, I love doing the show. I know you do too, Zach. We want to encourage everybody to hit the like and subscribe button down below, obviously. They got Connecticut. So the Gator Nation's everywhere. Zach, I never forget, I was driving through like Panama City, not Florida, the country, Panama. I was driving out taking a car out to the Panama Canal, and I saw a Gator flag hanging on a car. And it's like, it's everywhere. And I know everybody.
This will make you feel better.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zach. Although I would like to see snow. I haven't seen snow.
You've never seen snow?
I haven't seen snow in a while.
Okay.
Since I was a kid.
Okay.
I need to go to Colorado.
You didn't see any in Miami Beach last year when we were down there for the game?
No, there was other snow around.
Yeah. Well, Zach, anything else on spring football related?
Well, don't talk about it much or as much as offense and defense, but special teams, man. They're replacing their starting kicker. They're replacing their starting punter. They got a new special teams coordinator. Everyone knows the bugaboos that have happened on special teams, but I think there's a real chance that one, Florida won't have a drop off or much of one at kicker or punter because the Gators brought in 2 really good ones from Tulane. So that's number one. But those guys are still obviously got to settle into their new roles here and get acclimated. And then obviously I think the other aspect of that, there's 2 more, but the other aspect of it is having a new special teams coordinator. And what I think Joe Houston came in and did a great job improving that operation and I think fixing some of the issues that had plagued special teams the past couple years. But he's now moved on to LSU. So You have Jonathan Galante to come in here and incorporate now his scheme, his philosophy, his way of doing things. We spoke to him. He's a very sharp guy, very confident in his group, and also I think empowered by John Summerall, who emphasizes special teams and knows how important it is as a former special teams coach. So I do think that not only is there a good chance that Florida's not going to have much of a drop-off at all, I do think there's some areas that they could even improve or enhance, just giving how much it seems like this new staff prioritizes it, cares about it. And then last but not least, while there's all these newness, the one place you're not going to have newness is with your returner, because you got Vernell Brown, the third back. And, congrats to him. I saw his dad post this week. He got his 3 freshman All-SEC awards, one of them for being a return specialist. So the fact that they got him back, and that's something that they can lean on in the return game is great. They just got to get their specialists good to go, and Jonathan to figure out everything what it's going to look like on special teams with depth charts and all that stuff.
The kicker coming in from Tulane is Patrick Durkin. He's coming off a sensational season. I think he was On3's number 1 place kicker in the transfer portal. One of the punters, the main one from Tulane, the main one we think maybe. I mean,
he'll be the starter.
Yeah, Alec Clark from Tulane. And I guess if you ever seen the movie, Zach, I know you've seen Hoosiers, where he's trying to get the small town kids to understand, you're playing in this big arena. The court's the same size at the big arena as it is in the small arena. So you've got to, the only question mark with these guys is
the stage.
Okay, that's right. They haven't kicked at Neyland. They haven't kicked at Kyle Field or DKR at Texas or Memorial at Oklahoma or whatever. And so you just never really know. But it looks like the abilities there. And by the way, I like where they're headed in special teams. But I'm with you. I thought Joe Houston did a great job.
He did.
And I have to tell you, I think he was there were a lot of nice guys on that last staff. I know a lot of people don't care probably. He was just a good dude, man.
Very nice guy. Very nice guy.
A lot of good guys. You wish them all the success, except when they're playing against Florida. I know none of you want some special teams to do well. But all right, Zach, ready to move on to the Gator boys?
Yeah, talk a little Florida hoops, man.
All right. So the Gator boys are 20-6 now, 11-2 in the SEC. Zach, they were 0-1 in the SEC, so they've won 11-12 in conference play. They're 2 games out in front of, I think, Arkansas and Alabama. Alabama just won that incredible game the other night at home against Arkansas, so that gave Florida a 2-game cushion. So Florida's
without
really
Bediako.
Yeah, and don't get you started. And it seems like, I think when a team starts winning national titles, maybe you sort of not think as much about conference titles. But if my memory's right, Florida's only won the SEC basketball championship, and the regular season is really where you get the main banner from. I think they've won it 7 times and none before 1989. So there's still something big there. And you've mentioned this before on our last show. In fact, that's a big deal to Todd Golden. So going to Ole Miss this weekend, I think Florida's won 11-12 overall, number 12 ranked, number 9 in the NCAA net rankings, 8-5 versus quad 1 teams, number 6 in Ken Palm. Ole Miss, Zach, is just 11-15 and 3-10, but it's on the road, and they still have a guy that's generally considered one of the better coaches in college basketball. So you tell me, any concerns at all for this game?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're on a 7-game losing streak. The Rebels are. But Florida just played a team that was on a 6-game losing streak. And, it's still the SEC. You're at their place. It's a nooner. You've got the target on your back. I don't want to say certainly not trap game, because there's not even one set it up after this that's a big deal. But certainly going to Texas is going to be harder than going to Oxford, you would think. But I think, I think the challenge is just that, is because you're hot, the Gator boys are hot, because you're number 1 in the SEC, you're trending as a team, you're facing an opponent that's lost 7 in a row. Do you let your guard down? Do you not approach it with the right intensity, competitive edge that you need to? And Todd wants his group to be competing and attacking every game like it's the national championship, like a title's on the line. And I think if they do that, which they've been doing that, they should have no problem taking care of this business trip. But nonetheless, it's still, you got to go out there and do it. The great thing for this team, man, is they've won 5 straight in SEC play on the road, which is not easy to do.
That's incredible.
And think about this, Keith. They've now done that when early on in the season, maybe there were doubts about, like, can they get it? Not can they get it done, but they hadn't got it done away from the O-Dome, right? Like, they were really good at home in non-conference play and didn't take any losses until that Auburn loss. But, like, until that point, they were really good at home. And the only losses that they had taken were on neutral sites or at Duke and then at Missouri. And then they lose their conference opener on the road. And it's like, man, like, these guys got to figure out how to get it done, you know, when they're away from the comfort of their own home. And, man, have they figured out how to do that. And the fact that they're doing that now is big.
That Auburn loss seems more like an aberration every day that passes. Now they're dealing with some injuries and things like that, but just impressive play. Zach, I guess what impresses me the most, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I mean, you say, okay, they've got so much balance. If the bigs have an off night, the guards can pick up the slack because the guards are now sort of hitting their stride. They've made real progress there. And if the guards are struggling, you've got the bigs inside. But to me, what keeps them in every game is what they do on the defensive end. I think that keeps them literally in the game against anybody they play. The hustle, the rim protection on defense. It's just impressive to watch. Ruben Chinyelu, I wanted to bring this up, Zach. He's now another monster game. He's got 3 20-plus rebound games this season. He had 17 the other night. If he played more minutes, he probably would have had 25.
Yeah, if they didn't pull him.
Yeah, he's got 312 rebounds. He's now number 10 all-time in the single-season list at the University of Florida with 312 rebounds. At last check, yesterday, he was leading the nation in rebounding. He's been great on the defensive end. He's averaging close to 12 points on the offensive end. What has impressed you most about his game this year? Because offense is way up, rebounding is way up, defense is out of this world. But you're there watching every day. What do you think? Hard to pick one thing.
Yeah, that's a great question, Keith. Obviously, he's taken his offensive game to another level. Obviously, defensively, I think he was showing last year and showed last year that he can be elite on that side. He's just become even better and more of a lockdown defender and more of a versatile defender. So I'm not going to point to that, even though he might be the defensive player of the year. He's made improvements in both of those areas, right? And scoring on offense, his offensive game, and then defensively. But to me, just because of how elite he's been, I got to go with the rebounding. Like, he is probably the best rebounder or one of the best rebounders in school history, or at least is having a season like that. And what's wild is he only averaged 6.6 rebounds last year. He started every game. He started all 40 games. So it wasn't like he didn't have the opportunities. Now, we have to acknowledge weren't as many rebounds to be had because a lot more shots went in.
That's true.
But still, though, to go up from 6.6 to 12, he's averaging 12 rebounds a game. Now, he also went up from 6.0 points per game last year to 11.8 points per game this year. So he was only averaging 6 points and 6.6 rebounds a game last year. So he's really jumped both of those areas. But, like, to me, the rebounding is just such a difference maker. You can't quantify, I guess, some of the defensive improvements and dominance that he has, but like the rebounding numbers are the rebounding numbers. Like, he's gonna end up setting some records, and if he decides to come back for his senior season, he might own every rebounding record that there is in school history. But that would be the one area of his game that's just like that. That has become such a strength for the Gators, and it offsets their poor shooting, especially when it's not falling from the perimeter.
So
Ruben's going to just go grab the rebound.
So he's got 312 rebounds, as I mentioned right now, number 10 all time. Next up on the list is Gary Keller at number 9 with 326. So you're wondering who's number 1. The great Neil Walk, who was picked number 2 in the draft behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, had 494 as a junior and 481 as a senior. 19 rebounds a game as a junior, over 17 as a junior. Different era. Most of those were on the defensive end, Zach, because Ruben's like about to set the school record, or already has, for most offensive rebounds. After the 481, his number 2, number 3 is way down 360. Ruben's going to blow past that. So he's going to end up at very least the number 3 rebounder.
It'd be Neil Walk territory.
Yes. But the 481 now, Florida makes some kind of deep run, and he's averaging 15, 16 rebounds a game. And because you figure your minutes might go up in the key games, I don't know if it's out of reach or not. And Zach, I wanted to mention one other guy in the stats and in scoring. This is interesting. You talked about big jumps. What about your boy Thomas Howe? 9.8 points a game last year, 17.2 points this year, 448 points. Now, number 10 on the season, all-time season list for Florida is Dan Cross with 581. So Thomas Howe at 448, Dan Cross at 581. Well, Howe may be playing a lot more games. He may be able to find his way into the top 10. He has really taken his game to the next level, Zach. Have you ever seen, Zach, you covered this team for more than a decade, a guy 2 straight years make incredible jumps, because he made an incredible one last year.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. And then he's blowing by what he did last year. I mean, he went from being just a freshman bench contributor to 6th man of the year last year in the SEC. He didn't win it, but he should have won it. And then obviously when he came off of the bench into the starting lineup, when Condon got hurt, he really showed what he could do during that stretch. But this is still a guy that he only averaged 9.8 points per game last year and 6.1 rebounds. He's still averaging 6.1 rebounds, so no drop off there, which is honestly, Keith, impressive, because he's playing the wing now. So he's playing the 4 before, and now is at the wing and is still getting the same amount of rebounds, crashing the boards. But yeah, it's the points, from 9.8 points per game to 17.2 points per game. He's top 10 in the league in scoring right now. I mean, the dude has just been so clutch, so consistent. A great move by him and the staff, putting him at that 3 spot to replace Will Richard. It's been great. He's been great on the defensive end as well. And then, man, the competitive fire, and just, that dude he's stone cold, man. Like, as the shirt said, he's a cold ass white boy.
We need shirts like that. Zach, there were points during this offseason when people were questioning whether Todd was making the right call on that, right? Whether he was.
Yeah, that was weird. I never questioned that.
All right. So you've been around.
The way he played at Texas Tech, I go back to that game.
Yeah.
He could play on the wing. Like, the way he was playing in that game, he can play on the wing.
You're around Todd Golden a lot. You get him after games. You get him each week. You talk to him a good bit. How does he feel about where they're at right now? I mean, I saw the interview with Scott Van Pelt that you posted on the message board, and that was excellent. But how does Todd, from what you can tell, how does he feel about where they are right now? Are they where he thinks they need to be, and does he think they're still trending up? And what, just his general opinions right now?
Well, that's a great question, Keith, because he was asked that pretty much directly, after the game, and I'll share what he said. But obviously, it's hard to kind of put a finger on that, on whether they're where he thought that they would be. But the biggest thing is that he wants them to continue to keep improving. Like, they're doing a great job, and obviously in terms of the SEC and the race and everything like that. But I think the issue potentially in the Auburn game, and what went into that loss, is that they started to feel good about themselves, and they started to feel like that they had it in the bag, so to speak. And their mentality at some point is going to shift from going to trying to close out the season and win this regular season title. Their mentality is going to shift from that to getting into tournament time and getting into win or go home mode. So I just think the mentality of this team is, I think, one thing that he's going to always be monitoring and making sure that they're in the right headspace. And then from a basketball standpoint, they know what they can hang their hat on, right? They know that they're going to dominate on the interior, that they should win the rebounding battle, that they should have more points in the paint. They should have more second chance points, offensive rebounds. They know that defensively that they're going to show up on that end and that they should be able to do a good job defending the three-point line. Again, handling their own in the paint, blocking shots. The areas where they need to incrementally get better are three-point shooting and three-point shot selection. That's something where we've already seen them make strides. Alex Condon is taking less three-pointers. Boogie Flan is taking less three-pointers. When Xavier Lee is shooting threes, they're great shots, and he's making them. So I think before they were just jacking up threes early in the season. They've stopped doing that, and they're shooting at a higher clip. If they can shoot 33%, Keith, once they get to the end of the season and once they get into the tournament, they're going to be cooking. If they can make 9 to 10 3-pointers a game, shooting at a 30% clip plus, they're going to be cooking. And then the other thing I think is just continuing from, I think, Boogie Flan and Xavier Lee running the offense, operating it, keeping their assist high and their turnovers down. They've had some poor turnover games in the past. Florida's been doing a much better job of that. I know Alex Condon, he can have some turnover games because of how Florida funnels its offense through him. But just in general, making sure that they are taking care of the ball and their shot selection and their percentage from three, those are the things along with their mentality that I think he's going to be harping on here down the stretch.
All right. So, every game's a big game at this point because you don't want to lose the momentum that you've created. And this feels like a game Florida obviously should win. But historically, we need to point this out. They're in a newer arena now, but in the old Tad Smith Coliseum, Florida did struggle. They don't have a great record all time. And you say, well, history doesn't matter. And it doesn't. Every team's different. But sometimes, like you said, you could, you're going to be staying in a hotel in a small town. It's, who knows what the crowd's going to be like with Ole Miss struggling. So you just don't know what kind of atmosphere is going to be you're going to have there. That was always the problem in the old days, Zach, when you would go play those crappy Ole Miss teams at Tad C. Smith Memorial Coliseum. They sucked. And so nobody would be there. And the Vernon Maxwells of the world would wake up about midway through the second half, even the best players. And so I don't necessarily think it's that way anymore, but they've got a coach that is a good coach, and he'll have them ready. And I think that's a good thing. I think Florida, knowing that Beard is on that sideline and knowing that they have struggled there in the past, may not be a bad thing, because as a coach, you got to constantly challenge these guys. Zach, as always, great stuff. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
Yeah, man, we'll be having Florida baseball coverage for you guys, as well as at Gators Online. They had a midweek sweep this week. They've won 4 in a row. So it's that time of the year where we're pulling triple duty, Keith.
Yeah, I went to the baseball opener last week. Of course, the one game they didn't play worth a darn, and then
it was your fault. It was Keith's fault, everybody.
So is the Liam Peterson pitching tonight?
He'll be pitching tonight.
No, it's not like he was rocked in the opener. He only gave up like 3 hits in his 3 1/3 innings. But Zach, he had control problems. I think he walked 5 guys.
Yeah.
He had a throwing error that was really dreadful. And as a potential number 1 draft pick, he's got to be better. He's got to be the dude that everybody knows he can be, and the guy that he knows he can be. And so hopefully for Florida, that's the guy they're going to get tonight, and get him feeling good about himself, because he's got too much talent to play, to struggle the way he did last year. First game, sure. But again, if a guy's a candidate for the number 1 overall position in the draft, he needs to be dominating out there, the way I look at it. And I think
especially against a team like that.
Yeah. And maybe we'll see that. Maybe we will see that this week. So, all right. If you like what we're doing, hit the like and subscribe button down below. Can you get that? There you go. Like and subscribe button down below. As always, we've got great intel on the site. Zach had some great features this week, including not just stuff on Jaden Baugh, but what was the other one you had? God, I'm already.
Brandon Harris.
Brandon Harris. Always great
Hoops.
team intel, hoops coverage, recruiting coverage. We got a big recruiting insider up today.
Swamp Secrets, baby.
That's right. We got our recruiting boys, Blake Alderman and Corey Bender, going to cover an Under Armour camp in Orlando on Sunday. It's going to be loaded with potential Gators.
I can take Sunday off, is what you're telling me?
You can take Sunday off, sure, man. So a lot going on at GatorsOnline.com. There's always some kind of special to get you in the door, so check it out. We appreciate everybody stopping by. Zach, I hope you have a good weekend. Everybody listening and watching, I hope you have a good weekend too. For Zach Albaverdi, I am Keith Niebuhr. This was the Gators Online Show. Take care, everybody.